What's up, everyone? It's AG Reviews, back at it again. I just wanted to hop on here, say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I know there's a couple of things that have been happening in the entertainment space in the last couple of days. So I wanted to hop on here and give my thoughts on some of the things that have been going on. We're going to start with Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. I got the chance to see this a couple of nights ago. I didn't get a chance to review it. The day I saw it, essentially right out of the theater. I had some stuff going on, and then obviously yesterday Stranger Things dropped, so I didn't really get a chance to record that review and post it yesterday. So here we're going to talk about it today. I just wanted to give some backstory first about Knives Out and how I feel about the series as a whole. I'm in love with this series, honestly. This is definitely one of the better whodunit murder mystery franchises that are out there. I think that Rian Johnson in all three of these films crafts great mysteries with great characters, and it's kind of like a web of plots and deceptions and character interactions that I really enjoy. So I was really a big fan of those first two films. I would say I definitely preferred the first film over Glass Onion. I thought that the first film had a better crop of characters, actors, and then I felt like the central mystery in that movie was a little bit better than what we got in Glass Onion. But I did enjoy both. I think both are really solid films and work really well. So with that being said, obviously this is a franchise that I think has the potential to keep going and keep making films and keep going on. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed Wake Up Dead Man. I think that it is better than Glass Onion. I definitely preferred it over there. I think, we're going to talk a little bit more specifics here. I think it was a step up from that film. Still don't think it reaches the heights of that original Knives Out movie. I'm not sure if it, like the expectation in my head of any of these movies ever reaching that original, because I think that was such a surprise and kind of a one-time thing. I don't know if we can ever reach what that film did at the time. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I really had a good time with it. So let's get more into specifics. And right off rip, the thing that works the best about this film is the two leads, Daniel Craig returning as Benoit Blanc and Josh O'Connor as Father Judd. I really want to say I'm gonna start with Josh O'Connor. Because obviously we've already gotten two films with Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc. But to me, Josh O'Connor is one of the best up and coming actors in the market right now. I really enjoyed him in Challengers. I thought he was the standout in that film as well. I thought he was the best. Maybe not the best performance, because I still think Zendaya was really good in that movie, but he was definitely up there with Zendaya, I think, as the best performance in that film. And to me, he really showed his range and what he can do as an actor in this film, because compared to that role that he had in Challengers, this is such a polar opposite type of character, playing a priest, especially like a newer priest going to a newer church and having to deal with the circumstances that are going on in this church, and having to kind of get that balance of wanting to do good while being surrounded by a crop of characters that are clearly flawed and clearly aren't doing what you would expect people involved with a church to be doing, and the way they're acting. So to me, it provided such a nuanced performance where he had, like I said, it was such a polar opposite performance from what we got from him in Challengers. And I also felt like there was things that he had to balance in his character in this film as well. And he was just so good. I thought putting the bulk of the film on his shoulders, and pretty much most of the film being from the perspective of him, was such the right choice for this movie. He's basically the leading man from the beginning. Benoit Blanc doesn't even show up until like 45 minutes to almost an hour into the film, which I thought was a very risky choice, right? Because obviously Benoit Blanc is the one that we've been following in all three of these films. A lot of people come to these movies for him and his performance. And it's not that he wasn't great, but I was very surprised that Rian Johnson, decided to start this film without Benoit Blanc at all and rested solely on the shoulders of Josh O'Connor's character, and it worked so well. I was very, very surprised by his performance, and I can't wait to see A, this movie again, but then B, what else he's going to do in his career, because I think he has a very successful career in his future. Taking roles like these, like the ones that, the one he took in Challengers and now this film, it's like him being in these kind of fresh, original movies, I am very much a fan of. And so far, everything I've seen of him, which again, I haven't seen too much of him, only those two films, he did a fantastic job, and he absolutely has a future in this business as a leading man. And then, of course, I just talked about it. Daniel Craig is Benoit Blanc. I mean, this character is such an enigma, and he's so good in this role. If him and Rian Johnson came out tomorrow and said, hey, we just signed a deal with, whoever, Netflix, Sony, whatever company wants to buy these movies going forward and put them out there, and we're going to make 10 films, I would have no objection to it whatsoever. And I'm usually someone that does not want a franchise to carry on too long past its expiration date, but this franchise and the way they set these films up, where basically Benoit Blanc is the only one returning, and it's a different story, it's a different mystery every single movie, I think sets this up and this series up to continue for a long time. They can do this forever, and I don't think, I will ever get tired of it. Because, like I said, I prefer this film to Glass Onion, but that way that they make these films, being a different murder mystery every time and not really having too much layover, lends itself well to be a franchise. Because then if, you get a film maybe that you're not too high on, well, doesn't matter, because they get another chance in the next film with a new crop of characters, a new storyline, and I think that works really well and will allow this franchise to go forward. I also really dug the social commentary in this film, specifically about religion and the church and how, society tends to look at, these big personalities as leaders and, look up to people for the wrong reasons. I don't want to, get into too many details here, but obviously the central murder is surrounded around Josh Brolin's character. I can't really remember his name. I'm drawing a blank right now, but he's the leader of the church, and he's a very corrupted man. He's very morally bankrupt. He's not someone that you would traditionally think of as a leader, as someone who does good for people. And I felt like the dynamic right off rip when Josh O'Connor's, Father Judd gets to the church and he's kind of at odds with Josh Brolin, I thought that was a very interesting dynamic, and it had a lot to say about the way that, people look at religion and look at these churches and these figureheads and kind of get away from why people have faith and why people believe in this stuff. And I thought that was very interesting. It set up very interesting conversations and dynamics throughout the film and throughout the characters that I just wasn't expecting. It went a little bit darker, per se. There was still that Knives Out humor, but just the route that the film goes, I felt it felt like a fresh new way to tell this type of story, and I really appreciated that about this film. And I'll be honest, when talking about those first two Knives Out films, one of my biggest pet peeves and kind of criticisms with those films is I felt like who the murderer was of those first two films was pretty obvious. I was able to guess early on, but it was more of the why that I felt like was the big mystery and was part of the big reveals of why they did these things and the events that really transpired. And in this film, I did not even guess the who. I think, even though this isn't my favorite of the three, I think that the central mystery of the murder in this film and kind of the why everything is happening was really well done at keeping it under wraps and not being easily guessed. Um, and I think this was the best at it, which I was very surprised by because I really love how everything unfolded in that original film. But I might say that I think the reveal and finding out what's going on might have been the most effective in this film and kept me on the edge of my seat a little bit. So I won't say anything else. I don't really want to go into spoilers or anything, but man, yeah, I thought that the reveal and the mystery aspect of this film was very, very strong and really well done. But even with everything that I said that I loved about this film, like I said, it wasn't a perfect film, and I don't believe it is the best of the franchise. I still think the first is the best. And there's a couple reasons why. The first being that while I do agree, and I think there are some really great performances in this, particularly from Daniel Craig, from Josh O'Connor. Glenn Close, she was great as well. I didn't mention her before. I thought she was fantastic in the film. I do feel like the rest of the cast, didn't really get a lot to work with here. And I thought Josh Brolin was good as well. I forgot to mention him. I thought he did a great job. Very unique performance from him, kind of something different than we normally get. But I feel like everybody else, while we did get nuggets of their personalities and who they were, I don't think there was enough here to give everyone their time to shine. Particularly like Jeremy Renner, Kaylee Spaney, Kerry Washington. I don't think there was a lot done there with those characters when I felt like we could have did a little bit more. So I will say the only thing going forward about this franchise that I think that Rian Johnson can tone back a little bit is just having such large casts with so many big name actors, because I feel like that kind of sets up an expectation like a lot of these people are going to have big moments and big roles, when in all reality you can only do so many things with so many characters, right? So it's inevitable that when you have this many big names in these films that some of them are going to be left out and feel like they're kind of wasted because there's only so much screen time and there's only so much you can do with these characters. So what I would say, and my recommendation, yeah, again, I'm just a guy who comes on here and talks. I'm not, saying I can do this better than Rian Johnson. But I would hope in the future that maybe they'll scale back how many big names they have. Maybe only have a couple of big names and then the rest with the smaller roles be a little more unknown. Because I think sometimes it can be a little distracting, right? I think when you see someone like Jeremy Renner or Kaylee Spaney in such a minuscule role, it distracts a little bit from the point of the movie and the point of these characters. And then kind of to wrap up this review and my final negative of the film, while I do think that the mystery is probably the best one of the series so far, I do think once you get to the end and you get the reveals and you get some of the answers, they intentionally, I think, kind of speed past some of the answers of what happened because, like I said, this is a whole web of different events that are taking place and different actions that are causing the central mystery to happen. And some of them they kind of speed right past and only give you a brief explanation of what happened there. And I think because it wasn't exactly the most like believable things. Like some of the stuff, because it's hard to explain what I mean without spoiling the film, but there are multiple like reveals at the end and multiple events throughout the film that kind of caused everything to happen. And some of the ones I think are great and are perfect for the themes of what they set up with the film. Others I think needed a little more work and needed a little bit more believability of like how did that possibly happen? I have no idea. Like they kind of just brush over it and don't really fully explain it, and I think there was a reason for that. So yeah. And then to kind of piggyback off of that as well, I do feel like this film was a little bit too long. It's almost 2.5 hours, which I think Glass Onion was, but the first one I think was a little bit shorter than that. And I would have loved to have seen the runtime cut down just a little bit. Like I said, Benoit Blanc doesn't even show up until like 45 minutes to an hour in this film, which I thought was very strange. But yeah, outside of that, though, that's pretty much the only things about this film that bothered me. I really, really had a good time with this film, and I really hope that Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig still get together and still continue to make these movies because I think they're great. I think they're very clever. I think they're fun. I think the mysteries are really good. And I think this is the type of stuff that Ryan Johnson excels at. And I think he's a brilliant filmmaker when he makes these types of movies. So yeah, like I said, if they want to do 10 of these things, by all means, I would love it. I would be all for it. And I think that the industry would be better for it, because even though this is now kind of turned into a franchise, these still feel like original ideas and original films, because it's basically like I said, he's starting fresh every single film. It's a new story, it's a new setting, new group of characters, and it just makes for a fun time. I really, really have fun with these films, and I look forward every single time that these movies come out. But all right, guys, that's it for my review. If you've seen Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery, go ahead, comment below. Comment below what you thought about the film. Let me know what you thought. Comment how much you've enjoyed this film. Maybe give me a ranking. Of what you think the best, the worst of these three films is. For me, I think it's the first, Wake Up Dead Man, and then Glass Onion. But again, I love all three. I could watch all three at any given time. So let me know what you thought in the comments. And like I said, everyone, have a happy Thanksgiving. And I'll be putting a Stranger Things Volume 1 review out here very shortly. All right, everyone, take care.